It's time to pick up the pace, and ready to roll this week is Kawasaki's completely revamped middleweight sports machine, the ZX6R. Now, first off, if you follow the Canadian National Road Racing Circuit, then you know that Kawasaki and Jordan Zoke won back-to-back national 600 titles in '06 and '07. Translation? Kawasaki is serious about winning championships. So serious that when it relaunched the 600 last summer, they told journalists that it was their most track-focused machine ever created. Highlights include a totally redesigned engine with a cassette-type tranny and slipper clutch. Chassis geometry has also been tweaked in an effort to give the 6R more precise and predictable handling, while stopping is now handled in part by dual 300mm semi-floating stainless rotors with radial-mounted 4-piston calipers. Obviously, Jordan Zoke found the new ZX6R delivered the goods out on the racetrack. But how does it work in the real world? Well, here's what this week's guest tester, riding instructor Aliki Karayan, had to say. So Aliki, you walk up to Kawasaki Canada, you get dropped off in the cab, they throw you the keys and they go, hit the road. What was your very first impression when you saw this bike?
I liked it. I thought it looked pretty cool. It's really eye-catching, the green color. I think it's really great. And I really like what they've done with it this year. Particularly, I like what they've done with the signal lights, though, because it's not obtrusive like it used to be, but they're very bright and you can really see them on the streets, so Kawasaki hasn't compromised safety with style, so I thought that was really neat. I'm a big safety buff, so.
So let's talk about some of the seat of the pants impressions. What did you think of that motor when you fired it up? The sound of it, the power of it, what did you think?
Sounds good. It definitely sounds good. I like how smooth it is when you're going. The motor, it really, like, it's got a lot of torque and it's got a lot of pull. And first gear goes on forever. It's almost impossible to redline this bike. It redlines at like 16,000 RPM.
Yeah.
And at around 14,000, without looking down, you think that the engine's just going to blow up, but it's not. It keeps going. I think first gear up to about 130 kilometers an hour, and then up to second. Unbelievable.
Now, we know it goes quickly. What about stops?
Brakes are nice. Yeah, brakes are nice and aggressive on the front brake, and the rear brake isn't too grabby as well, so you can use do a lot of slow speed techniques with this sort of bike with the rear brake.
Right.
I think the brakes were quite progressive and predictable as well. It didn't grab too quickly when you applied the brakes, and so you could use whatever your judgment is in terms of braking, and the more you grab, the more braking you get out of it. So.
Okay. Now, you've got fairly small hands. You're 5'3", right? What about the clutch and the shifting? Was the clutch easy to use?
Absolutely, yeah. The shifting, no problem. This bike fits me quite well, I'd say. And the clutch, really smooth, really smooth. I tried to downshift into first gear at about 80 kilometers an hour, and it's still downshifted quite smooth. So there's a little bit of give there, and it's one of the smoother bikes that I've ridden, most definitely, in terms of the clutch.
How did you find the cockpit layout, the controls, the mirrors? I
was pleased with the controls. They have some really neat stuff over here. If you look, you can actually see, let's see, right over here as an actual lap timer. So you can actually choose, if you're going around a corner, you can actually time yourself, which is really neat for those guys on the track.
Cool.
And you can also go back to your old lapping as well. Over on this side, you can actually go back to the old lap. And you have an option here for your gear shift indicator light. You can actually choose where you're going to shift, and you can set that yourself. So I have it set at about 14,000 RPM, but it's very hard to rev the bike up that high on the streets. So I haven't really seen the light off. And you also have the option of having the light flashing, blinking, or just have it on. So you have a lot of neat options here to choose from in terms of the instrument panel. So I was pretty pleased with that.
What didn't you like about the bike? Was there anything that you were sort of disappointed?
It was a little bit heavier than some of the sport bikes that I've ridden. And again, I think the seat was a little bit stiff. So I found when I was riding on the highway for long periods of time, I was adjusting myself over and over again just to get a comfortable position. So it took a little bit of time for me to get used to or get a good position on the bike, but when I did, it was all right.
So who could you see recommending this bike to? Who could you see purchasing one of these?
I would definitely not recommend this bike for somebody who's a beginner rider, but somebody who's more experienced, who really likes to do curvy roads, who really likes to go on the track, or has that track mentality in terms of improving their skill in corners and that sort of thing. I would recommend this bike to.
Yeah.
For somebody who likes to do long treks on straight 80 highways or up north, that sort of thing, it's not the most comfortable bike for that.
Right. Okay. So did you have fun?
I had a great time.
We'll get you back for some more. Thank you very much for helping us out with this.
No problem.